Krishna Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. This is Avani and this is my Bhagavad Gita project. The topic of my project was body and soul. And the key point from my whole project is that we are not the body, we are the soul. Understanding the difference between body and soul, between matter and spirit, is the beginning of spiritual life and the only basis for true self-realization, which is a quote from Srila Prabhupada. So what is the body? Normally when people think of the body, they think of the physical structure of a person or an animal. But the body is really just a covering of the soul. Krishna says in chapter 13, verses 6 and 7, that there are 24 elements that make up the body. The 5 great elements, false ego, intelligence, the unmanifested, the 10 senses in the mind, the 5 sense objects, desire, hatred, happiness, distress, the aggregate, the life symptoms and convictions. All these are considered, in summary, to be the field of activities and its interactions. So the body is a representation of all these elements, and there are 6 changes in the body. The body is born, it grows, it stays, it produces byproducts, it begins to decay, and at the last stage, it vanishes. So how does your body change? Your body changes depending on your karma. So how does karma affect your body? Shri Ram yad avapnoti yat chapi utkramatishvara grihit vetani samyati vayurgandan ivashayat. Krishna says this verse in chapter 15, and it's verse 8. And he says that the living entity in the material world carries its different conceptions of life from one body to another, just like how the air carries aromas. So thus, he takes one kind of body and again quits it to take another. So it is a false claim that after the annihilation of the body, everything is finished. The individual soul is just transmigrating from one body to another, and his present body and present activities are the background of his next body. So one gets a different body according to karma, and he has to quit this body in due course. For example, let's say you eat a lot of meat in this life. So in your next life, Krishna will give you the body of a carnivore. And this image down here is showing the 6 changes of the body, which is that the body is born, it grows, it stays, produces byproducts, begins to decay, and at the last stage, it vanishes. So it's been stated earlier that the soul is transmigrating from one body to another. So what is the soul? The soul is described in chapter 2 of the Bhagavad Gita. One main verse is 2.20, which is Na jayate mriyate va kadachin nayam bhutva bhavitavan bhuyaha ajo nitya shashvatoyam purano nahanyate hanyamane sharirin. So he says in this verse that for the soul, there is neither birth nor death at any time. He has not come into being, does not come into being, and will not come into being. He is unborn, eternal, ever-existing, and primeval, and he is not slain when the body is slain. 3 points to remember from this verse is that the soul is unborn, the soul is eternal, and the soul is not slain when the body is slain. So some soul facts. The soul is made up of Sat, Chit, and Anand, which is eternal, full of knowledge, and blissful. And so how do we know that the soul is present in the body? One main symptom of the soul is consciousness. So when the soul is present in the body, there's consciousness all over the body, and as soon as the soul has passed from the body, there's no more consciousness. So the soul is moving through bodies. How do we know this? Well, Krishna says this in chapter 2, verse 13 of the Bhagavad Gita. Dehino asminyata dehe komaram yovanam jara tata dehantara prapter dhiras tatra namuyate. The translation of this verse is that as the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change. Krishna also gives us another example to help us understand this. He gives us an analogy. And he says, just like how a person puts on new clothes when the old ones get worn out, the soul accepts new bodies, giving up the old useless ones. So he's comparing the body to old garments, which is stated in 2.22 of the Bhagavad Gita. This image down here is showing 2.13 and is showing how the soul is moving through the body from boyhood to youth to old age. Relevance to current times. So nowadays, most people are more focused on the external looks and body. Example, cosmetic surgery. But in the end, it doesn't matter because everything in this material world is temporary. The soul is eternal. We need to differentiate between the body and the soul the soul doesn't go through any changes and nothing can happen to it or destroy it, which is stated in 2.23 of the Bhagavad Gita. Even the modern scientists who do not believe in the existence of the soul cannot explain the source of energy from the heart. So therefore, we eternal souls are more important than our bodies, and to understand this point is real knowledge. We are not the body, we are the spiritual beings trapped inside of the body. And our real interest lies in understanding the simple fact, which is another really important quote from Srila Prabhupada. So, the key point that you have to remember from my entire presentation is that we are not the body, we are the soul. Thank you for listening. Hare Krishna.